Hey everybody, I hope and pray that you're doing well today as we come to our word from the Word. And today that word is charge. Charge. Now that's not so much as much as it is an exclamation about charging forward, but it's really more to think about who's in charge. Who's in charge of your life? Who's in charge of this world? Now a lot of times we look around and we say, well, right now it seems that evil is in charge. It seems that Satan, the ruler, the prince of this world right now is running things. But let's remember, even from the story of Job, it seemed like Satan was running things in his life. But if you remember in the first two chapters of Job, Satan had to come ask permission before he messed with Job. Yeah, God is even the one that suggested Job. But God is the one who set the limits on what Satan could do. That truth alone shows us who's in charge. But now, Job, he wasn't privy to that information. He didn't know the conversations that had gone on in heaven. And while we read this, none of the characters in the story at the time knew these things. So as Elihu's going on in Job chapter 34 today, let's look at verses 10 through 15. And he says this, "Therefore listen to me, you men of understanding. Far be it from God to do wickedness, and from the Almighty to commit iniquity. For he repays man according to his work, and makes man to find a reward according to his way. Surely God will never do wickedly, nor will the Almighty pervert justice. Who gave him charge over the earth? Or who appointed him over the whole world? If he should set his heart on it, if he should gather to himself his spirit and his breath, all flesh would perish together, and man would return to dust." Realize that if for any moment, if God decided to take his hand off of this earth, if God decided to remove his spirit, and as he says, remove his breath, we would all die immediately. It wouldn't be like we would continue to sustain for a little while. If God took his hand off of us for even one moment, that would be the end. And so that's kind of Elihu's argument. He says, who's in charge? I love how we ask even that question, who put God in charge? Well, the truth of that is that no one, right? Because if you think about it, if anyone gave God the authority to be in charge, then whoever gave that authority would be God or would be greater than God. And since God is the greatest, and there are none like him, there's no one above him, then he is the one who gave himself the authority to be over everything. Now, while we can't really make sense of that here on earth, that's because our finite minds cannot truly grasp and understand the whole concept of God. That's one of those things we just have to trust and believe by faith. But when he's asking the question, who's in charge, and this goes back to why are you contending with him, as we talked about yesterday, have you ever just stopped to think about everything that God does control? Think about just the simple things you've done, even just this morning. Now, some of you may watch these early in the morning. Well, God got you up this morning. He allowed you to sleep. He continued, the earth continued to spin. The percentage of oxygen in the air continued to be the exact right percentage that you needed to sustain living. He provided you, right? We may even look and say, well, the house and everything. Okay, well, my house, or I built that myself, or the electric bill, I paid that myself. Okay, well, how did you pay for it? With money that you earned at a job. Who provided the job? Well, the employer. Well, how did the employer? You could keep going back, and no matter how short a distance you have to go or how far back you go, it all originates with God. But not only did God put everything in place and continue to watch over it, he continues to sustain it. And if God continues to sustain life, he continues to be in charge of life, why do we ever argue with what he's doing with our life? Why do we ever question what he's allowing in our life? Now, that's really easy to say, but it's a whole nother thing to have that attitude to say, God, you're in charge, and I'm submitting wholeheartedly to what you would have for me to receive. Now, we always have those hands wide open when we're receiving good, but when trouble comes, we usually are turning those hands around saying, no, God, I don't want that. But you remember, even as Job said, well, the Lord gives and the Lord takes away. But still, blessed be the name of the Lord. Now, Job had said that early, but it seems that the further he'd gotten away from the beginning of this trouble, the more he began to forget that God was still in charge, that God was still on his throne, and that God could do no wrong. So if God can do no wrong and God cannot act wickedly, then whatever you're facing today is allowed by God, either as a consequence for something trying to teach us, or as just a lesson that stands alone to teach us that's not tied to any sin, any particular sin. But in either case, if the lesson is teaching us, then shouldn't we be thankful that he continues to be in charge today? God bless you, and I pray you have a great, great day.